Hey everyone, my name is Architect, and today we're going to be focusing on Sage's slow orb ability on the map Split. I'm going to be showing you several lineups and spots that will help buy your team more time for rotations, set your team up for easier kills, and hopefully win more rounds on both the attacker and defender side. We've got a good amount to cover in this video, so let's jump right on into it. For this first lineup, walk into this corner on top of the plant box. You see these three dark gray squares on the side of the building? You want to focus on the top right corner of the bottom gray square. Now, using the small HUD line in between the wall icon and the slow orb icon, place the right tip of the HUD line in that corner and throw. This orb will land at the top of ramp, heavily discouraging enemies from holding an angle or swinging on you. If your team is executing onto A and you want to preemptively slow behind the billboard on site, walk into this corner and look up at the two beams of light in the distance. Focus on the point at which the left beam meets with the overhang of the coffee shop. When you pull out the slow orb, place the diamond at the top of the mouse icon box on that point, pull down just a tiny bit and throw. This slow orb makes it hard for anyone playing behind billboard to peek you, and gives your team intel if you hear footsteps crunching on the ice. From the same spot as the last lineup, aim at the tip of this piece of construction and throw. This slow orb lands behind the box under heaven and pairs nicely with a molly or raisinade if you suspect someone might be playing there. If you want to slow the left side of elbow, walk into the center of this wall and aim your crosshair at the bottommost point of this light beam and throw. This prevents enemies hiding in elbow from peeking you and your teammates, as well as cut anyone off trying to rotate onto site from screens. Alternatively, if you want to throw a slow orb deeper into screens, move your crosshair up the light beam until it's directly to the left of the dark gray part of the building next to it. This slow orb is great for cutting off rotations and puts pressure on anyone holding an angle from screens. To slow the entirety of elbow, walk into the corner next to this plant box. Place your crosshair on the right edge of the glowing blue part of the building and throw. This is a tight lineup, but if done correctly, it will slow all of elbow and even gets a decent amount of sight by the default plant spot. This is a very strong slow orb that I recommend using in your games for A executes. To throw a slow orb into A heaven, walk into this corner on the left side of the bench. Aim your crosshair at this light under the top balcony and throw. Generally, this window into heaven will be smoked off, but this will still prevent enemies from aggressively pushing into the smoke and swinging on your team from rafters. If you didn't smoke this window off, this also puts pressure on enemies holding an angle from heaven. This next one is a slight variation of the previous lineup. Wedge yourself into this corner on top of this plant box, and you see the building with two dark gray squares on it. Aim your crosshair at the top right corner of that building and throw. The orb will bounce off of the structure on the right and land in front of the A heaven window. This slow covers more of rafters at the cost of a little less of heaven being slowed, so use whichever lineup you feel is more effective. If you're on defender side and want to slow into the cafe area of the attacker spawn, stand directly in the middle of this triangle in front of the A heaven window. On this light post, aim at the right edge of the light and throw. By itself, this slow orb doesn't do much, but it can be really effective if comboed with a Brimstone, Sova, or Breach ult at the start of the round. As a defender, if you're playing A ramp and want to slow the bottom of A main without exposing yourself, walk into this corner next to the metal box. Aim at the top left tip of this building and throw. If you want to throw a slow orb closer to the bottom of ramp, from the same spot, just aim at this part of the wall and throw. You can see where the first orb lands, as well as the second orb right here. If you're playing A ramp and your teammates call that the enemies are mid, walk into this spot and focus on the tip of this wall here. Now move your crosshair straight up until it touches the extended piece of the ceiling and throw. This slow orb will arc over the construction and land in the center of mid, slowing down any pushes. If you have a raise in vents or B heaven, comboing a nade with the slow orb can be very deadly. Moving on to B site, if you're an attacker and want to slow B heaven, walk into this corner here. You want to focus on these two canisters at the point where they make a small corner. Pull out your slow orb and place the left edge of the triangular HUD line that appears above the slow orb icon into that spot, as shown here. Then just click to throw. This slow orb will land in front of the B heaven window and make it so that the enemies have to drop into hell if they want to rotate onto site. If you want to slow deeper into B heaven, stand directly on this torn off tile space and look up at the top of the pink building. Place your crosshair between these two pegs on the roof and move your crosshair up until it's halfway between the pink building and the ceiling above you. Then you want to jump, then immediately throw. It's important that you don't jump and throw at the exact same time, otherwise the orb will hit the roof. Again, you want to jump, then throw. This orb is great for both B rushes and mid to B executes. For this lineup, walk into this corner on top of the fallen traffic cone. Place your crosshair on the left side of this satellite dish, right here, and move it straight up until it touches the wire above it. Then just click to throw. This orb covers the entirety of B Rafters and prevents enemies from pushing through your B Heaven smokes and holding an angle on you from rafters. To slow the area around the default plant spot, walk into this corner on the left side of these tires. Next, place your crosshair on this corner of the tower and move it just a tiny bit up and to the left. Admittedly, this lineup is an extremely hard one to hit given how pixel perfect it is, but I wanted to show it anyway because it looks cool and it's very effective if landed. It goes through that tiny triangle hole and will prevent enemies from peeking into the B main tunnel. Alternatively, you can move your crosshair to where the wire touches the corner of the tower and throw. This won't get as much of the stairs, but it will make it hard for anyone playing in this spot to retreat into alley. The slow can be really strong when paired with a killjoy ult. To slow the backside area, walk into this corner. Next, you're going to want to crouch and place your crosshair on the tip of the wall that's sticking out, and move it to the right until it touches the shadow of the building. Then stand up and throw. Credit for this lineup goes to a YouTuber by the name of Flaws, as was the first ever lineup that I learned in Valorant during the beta, and that's why I wanted to include it in this video. If you want to slow directly behind the billboard, from the same spot without crouching, place your crosshair on the right tip of the wall, and move it up until it's slightly higher than the left tip of the wall. It doesn't need to be perfect, as long as it's around this area it should work. This will prevent any peeks from behind billboard, and can be very nasty when paired with mollies and nades. For this last slow orb, stand in this back corner. Look up at the edge of the metal roof that's nearly vertical, and place your crosshair in the center of these 2 points. Then, just pull your crosshair to the right until it almost touches the shadow of the building, and throw. This slow will land in the area close left of the B tunnel exit, which your team can clear out using other utility. And that's going to be all for this video. I hope some of these lineups will prove to be useful to you guys in your games on Split. If you found this video helpful, a like rating is always appreciated, and consider sharing this with your fellow Sage mains. Thanks again for watching. Architect clocking out.